hear that, Mark? We got the top Backstreet Boys tickets. These are actually front row Backstreet Boys tickets from my dad, and my mom ended up winning, she used to play a ton of radio games, front row tickets to the Spice Girls concert the day before. So that summer, my parents drove me to Indianapolis to see the Spice Girls, and then we drove back home and drove back down to Indy to see the Backstreet Boys. So I just had like the best parents ever, that they would sit through 2 concerts like that, probably thinking I was crazy, but one of the Backstreet Boys winked at me, and I'll never forget that. Anyway, I'm just so excited to be with all of you wonderful women tonight, and before we get started, I just want to acknowledge how much preparation so many volunteers have put into this evening to make this event possible. So I just want us all to give a round of applause to the staff here, to Tina and Brenna, to the Glen Hotel. And also, I just want to thank each and every one of you for making the time in your schedule to do something for yourself.
Thank you.
And for being here tonight. That's just so important, and I hope just the great pattern that will begin for you to incorporate rest into your holiday season. So while it is only December 1st, we're officially in the month of Christmas, and Advent is upon us. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's already feeling swept up by the craziness of Christmas. Even though we just had Thanksgiving 4 days ago, but for months already I've been planning my family trips out of town. I've been working on seeing how I can stretch my very small gift budget for my friends and family, and then trying to make trips to the mall just to get these gifts. But what's most disturbing, I think, is that when this sense of rush and chaos comes with the holidays each year, I'm not surprised by it. I actually expect it. It kind of goes hand in hand with when I think about Christmas and the way that I celebrate it. And I think it's like once we get past New Year's and into January and settle back into the routine of things, I often find myself needing a vacation just to recover from Christmas vacation. And how backwards is that? So tonight, we're going to be talking about the theme of rest and how to incorporate that not only as a rhythm in our life, but especially at the time of Christmas. Juno is right when he said before that the household responsibility of pulling off a successful Christmas falls upon the shoulders of the woman in the house. There's a ton of research and sociologists who have studied that and found that this trend has only increased since about the time of the Victorian era, and it's really got in the 1950s, just became like this expectation that women have to have it all together and make Christmas perfect each and every year. And we live with that expectation every year. But I don't want this Christmas to feel like a repeat of Christmas chaos in the past. I want to actually enjoy the gift of rest that God has given us. And although this may sound crazy, I want to enjoy the way that I celebrate Christmas. This should be something that we enjoy, where we're in the presence of our loved ones, our family, our friends, and most importantly, where we can just pause and remember the gift of the baby who was born 2,000 years ago and forever changed our world. So to figure out how to go about slowing down this Christmas, I did what I always do when I need advice, and that is Google it. So I went to Google and I did some research to see what the internet had to say about women and the busyness of Christmas. And lo and behold, a lot of interesting stuff came up, so I'm just going to read to you a few of the most interesting things that I found. So in a survey, 42% of women said that hosting Christmas Day is single-handedly their most stressful job of the entire year. Half of women surveyed fear their hosting skills for holiday gatherings will be criticized by family and friends, especially in-laws. A British study revealed women lose 21 hours of sleep during the holiday season. Women average 5 hours of sleep a night as compared to the recommended 8 hours of sleep. Okay, this is my favorite one. 85% of men, that's almost all the men, said they don't understand the effort required for a perfect Christmas. Go figure. And lastly, a survey by the American Psychological Association found that more women than men feel stressed at Christmas and have a harder time relaxing and enjoying the season, which, writes the Washington Post, defeats the whole point of the season, really. So I had a good laugh at a few of those, but what really struck me was that last point. The fact that a secular newspaper got it right. They were able to identify the point of Christmas as being to rest and to relax. See, rest just isn't a health recommendation for us. It's actually a God-commanded spiritual discipline that allows us to not only enjoy our life, but most importantly, to enjoy what this Christmas season is all about. But as with everything that God has encouraged us to do in this life, rest is a choice. And that's why I've entitled this message, if you see it on your programs, A Restful Christmas with a question mark at the end. Because I believe that it's up to each of us to determine how we're going to answer that question this Christmas. Rest can be part of our Christmas. We can have a restful Christmas if we choose to make rest a priority. Although it's not easy, but I believe that the benefits will be worth it. There's a story in the Bible that really perfectly illustrates this theme of rest and busyness when it comes to women. So we're going to be reading about the story of when Jesus has been traveling with his disciples and they're en route to Jerusalem. And they stop in at the home of two of his friends. They're sisters by the names of Mary and Martha. So I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42, and they'll be on the screens behind me. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and help me." But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all of these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." I just really think that there is so much relatability to this story that we can identify with probably both Mary and Martha in some ways. So as I refer to this story, I'm just going to, the sisters' names, M-A-R and M-A-R, they can kind of get confusing. So just to make it clear for you, Mary is the one who made the right choice. You can think about like Mary had a little lamb, just Mary who does everything right. And then we have Martha, who's the one slaving away in the kitchen. Just think of Martha Stewart, except this Martha didn't go to prison. So I want you to imagine that you're Martha in this scenario, and it's Christmas 2014, and you're hosting the entire side of your family for Christmas dinner. And it's 15 minutes until dinner is supposed to be on the table. And as we know, that never really happens anyway. But you have a lot of stuff that still needs to be done to pull off this perfect Christmas dinner. And not only that, there's a lot of pressure riding on your shoulders. Your hosting skills are on the line, your cooking skills are there. You kind of feel like your reputation is hanging by your ability to pull off this meal. So you have the honey baked ham sitting there, but it still needs to be carved. The glasses are set, but the martinelli still needs to be poured. And you've already burnt the first batch of dinner rolls. And guess what? Your sister, who was supposed to help you that day in the kitchen, that was her only job, she's nowhere to be found. So, I see some head nods. I know this has already happened. It's happened in my family too. You rip off your apron and you set out on a mission to find your sister and to let her know just how irresponsible she's being at the time when you need her most. So you check in the basement and she's not there. It's just a bunch of screaming children. You check in the family room and she's not there either. So to rush back to the kitchen because you hear all the time is going on, you just see a dim light coming from the den. And you open the door, and you find your sister there. And she's just sitting with your 90-year-old grandpa. And she's looking up at him, smiling, as he tells another one of his many war stories. And you're so just distracted and stressed and frustrated by everything on your plate that you don't appreciate the absolute sweetness of this moment. That perhaps your sister is just wanting to spend time in the presence of her hero, a man who may not be around next Christmas. And instead of recognizing that, you just lose your cool. And you complain to your grandpa that your sister is doing nothing to help you out. And you say, isn't this unfair? Do something about it. Just like Martha said to Jesus. How funny that she's the one complaining to Jesus, telling him, the Lord, that this is unfair, that he needs to do something about it. I've been there. But instead, Jesus says that Mary is making the right choice. The one who, in the midst of all this craziness and chaos, has chosen the one thing that delights him. She has chosen to rest in his presence. A sociologist by the name of Leslie Bella did a lot of research on women and their roles at Christmas time. And she writes, women feel compelled to create rituals and follow traditions, especially around Christmas, because of a need for what she calls family making. See, our intentions here are just like Martha's. I believe her heart was in the right place. She was doing all that she could to throw the perfect hosting experience for her guests. She wanted to make dinner perfect. She probably wanted to make sure the table looked beautiful. But she got so distracted in the details that she ended up neglecting the guests the whole party was thrown for. I know I've done that. In fact, I just did it the other week as I was preparing for tonight. I got so worked up about what am I going to wear, what am I going to wear. And Mark can attest to this because he went shopping with me and I bought stuff, and then a week later I returned stuff because I just couldn't decide, and I was so worked up in the details, and he very kindly said, Rachel, I think you're overthinking this. And he was right. This is what tonight's about. Being together with one another. Remembering the reason that we celebrate Christmas year after year. And reflecting on the ways that Jesus has changed each and every one of our lives. So, it's these expectations that go along with executing Christmas that make us feel like we have to make this year's Christmas as good as it was last year's, and probably even do better than that for the sake of our family. Again, nothing wrong with that. But often we neglect the guests the whole party is thrown for. We do all of these Christmas celebrations and fancy dinners and work parties and gift exchanges, and how often do we just rush through these trying to get one thing done after another and fail to recognize that this is a birthday party for Jesus? I mean, it would be quite silly if we went to a baby's birthday party, a 1-year-old baby, and the baby's name was never mentioned. We never sang a song to the baby. We never paid any attention to him, doted over him. He just didn't exist. That would be weird to us. But yet, when I reflect on my own Christmases, I think that's what I've done, more years than one. But Mary, she made the choice that Jesus affirmed. She chose the chosen one. And I also just feel compelled to remind us that rest is not a burden. It's not just one more thing to add to our to-do list. It's a gift from God. And in experiencing rest, it opens our eyes to all of the other gifts that he's blessed us with. Most importantly, at Christmas season, the gift of Christ himself. Just as Jesus was telling the Pharisees in Mark 2:27, when they were getting so worked up about how to go about observing the Sabbath, that they ended up missing the point. He reminded them that the Sabbath was made for their benefit. They weren't made to serve the Sabbath, or to be a slave to it, or feel like it was just one more thing that they had to do. It's a gift to us. So this idea of rest may sound great. We love the sound of it. But just how do we go about incorporating that into our lives as well as into the Christmas season? And for me, I feel like my to-do list is it's already so overwhelming, and I can't even imagine what it must be like for some of you with husbands and children and grandchildren and relatives coming in from out of town. And you might be thinking, there's just nothing that can give from your to-do list. I'll confess that even as I was working on this message, for weeks, I was also simultaneously having another document open on my computer that, no joke, is saved as Christmas 2014 to-do list. Where all the projects that I've been putting off of the year, I've been adding to this. It is a radical choice choose rest over productivity, a radical choice. We're very aware that the world we live in has become 24/7 go, 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 and rest doesn't come easy. We have to make an intentional choice to incorporate a rhythm of rest into our life. But in doing so, we know that the benefits are so plentiful, and that Jesus delights in our choice. So as you're thinking about maybe how you can incorporate rest into your holidays this year, I want to leave you with some encouragement in making that choice. Rest reminds us that we are not in control or responsible for everything around us. Rest reminds us that we are fragile and require care. Rest is obedience to God. Rest restores and re-energizes us. It helps balance our being with our doing. When we rest, we are showing love to ourselves. Rest allows us to be more aware of God's presence and of the blessings present all around us that we often miss when we're depleted and drained. And rest leads to joy because it renews our relationship with God. As I was writing this message, I was reflecting over my own Christmases, mostly through childhood. And I tried to remember, okay, what were those details that my mom really worked hard for? You know, the table decorations or the crafts that she had us do. What food did we eat and what were my favorite gifts? Or my least favorite? As you can attest to, I couldn't even remember that. I had a really hard time remembering any of the details from any one of my Christmases. What I did remember were the traditions that my family celebrated year after year. Like how in the week before Christmas we'd have our family sleep out. And everybody in the family, including my parents, which I thought was like the coolest thing, we all pulled our sleeping bags out and we slept under the Christmas tree the whole night and watched Home Alone. Or how on Christmas Eve after church service my dad always read us The Night Before Christmas. Or how we'd pick out a plate of my mom's homemade cookies and leave them out for Santa before we went to bed. These are the things that I remembered. The times of warmth and joy and love. The very things that, since my parents divorced 4 years ago, my family has spent every Christmas separated. I've missed each and every Christmas. These are the things that I just wish I would have taken time to sit and enjoy being in the presence of my family and all that Christmas meant to us while I still have the opportunity. So the question I leave you with is, what can you lay to rest this Christmas? Now, I'm not suggesting that you go home and kick your feet up and pass on all of your Christmas obligations, but well, actually, maybe you should. Your husbands don't understand why you're all worked up anyway. Maybe this means just taking one thing off of your to-do list, or retitling your to-do list January 2015, like I did the other week. Maybe this means being more aware of when you're placing expectations on yourself and striving for perfection, or even just being aware of your own needs and knowing when you need rest and feeling like you can't do that for yourself. This Christmas, each of us has a choice. We can choose to work like Martha did, striving over all the details in an effort to make Christmas perfect and end up missing the point. Or we can make the choice that Mary made, the choice that Jesus affirmed, to put down the dishes, to cast aside our expectations, and to simply sit with Jesus. When we enter rest, it allows us to refocus on the giver of the gift of rest, and opens our eyes to all of the gifts that we've been given. But most importantly, when we choose rest, it refocuses us to the ultimate gift, Jesus Christ himself. The one this season, this night, is all about celebrating. And so I pray that each of us can make that choice this Christmas, and that when we do, that we are able to unwrap even deeper and greater joy and love in our relationship with God. Let me pray for us. Lord, I thank you so much for this evening, God, for bringing all of these beautiful women here. Lord, you know the struggles that they came into this room with. You know the burdens on their heart. You know how they're already striving and thinking about how they can make Christmas perfect for their family, God. And I know that your heart delights in their desire to take care of their families, God. But this Christmas, I just ask that you help each of us to make the choice of rest. And in doing so, that we're able to appreciate the gifts you've given us, our health, our jobs, our family, our friends. Most importantly, Lord, that we're able to reflect on you, the one this season is all about, the one that we wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't for you. Rest isn't an easy choice, but you are the one who promised that your presence would go with your people and that you would give them rest. So I pray that your presence goes with all of the women here tonight, Lord, into their holiday season, into the various ways that they celebrate you, Lord, and that they would be able to have a restful Christmas and to enjoy more of you.